thing is, when we carry so much trauma that is unprocessed, it's almost like wearing glasses that are made out of the experiences that we went through. So whatever we experience here and now, if the trauma is unprocessed, takes us back into the past. So we don't really see, let's say, our boss who is just shouting at us. We see the father or the mother who's yelling at us, because that's where that raised tone of voice takes us back into the past, because the past hasn't been processed and whatever has happened there. So the moment we work on that and we release that, then that's when, let's say, if it's the boss or someone else, another adult person who is shouting at us, that's when we can respond to them from a very different position.
Welcome back to Massimo Podcast, where we explore the inner working of change, growth, and living life of others. Today's guest is someone whose work with deeply touched the lives of people around the world. Dagmara Pluta is a psychotherapist, healer, and soul alchemist who bring together science-based psychotherapy, somatic healing, and energy work to help others in soul-aligning lives. From classroom in Poland to healing space in Bahrain. Her story as powerful as the tools she teach. So settle in, because this episode is all about discovering what's hidden beneath the surface of our struggles and how to finally break free. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so, because this helps us to scale up the channel and take that to further level. Now, one thing I was looking to the stats, that 90% of the people who watch the show regularly, they are not subscribed. So the simple way to help us to allow us to grow is by hitting subscribe button. Dagmara, thank you for making time to be in the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Now, describing yourself as a soul alchemist, what would be your input for that?
Okay, so why did I choose these words? Okay, so as you beautifully introduced me, I'm a psychotherapist and a healer and an energy worker. So I combine so many different things. I sometimes use the word soul alchemist. Actually, it's some of my clients who gave me that label, let's put it that way, is because I, in my work with people holistically. So what I mean by that, it's never just about the mind, like when people come to therapy, but it's about the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit, our feelings, our emotions. So human beings are holistic human beings. We are not just one thing out of all of these aspects. So when I work with people, that's how I work with them, and so it doesn't only touch your heart and your mind, but it really, in very, very deep sessions, it touches your soul.
Speaking of the sessions and the way you said, explain to me what are the things that you have done in order for the people to feel that and then tell you that, and then for you to reflect on and saying, oh, I see myself as a soul alchemist. So what do you do in your session that allow people, or to kind of create that perception for the people to have that?
Okay, so that's a very, very deep question. So many things happen depending on the challenges that people come with. But the way I see therapy, psychotherapy work, is about making people feel safe again, because at some point in their lives, they didn't feel safe. Something happened that is still saved in their bodies, in their subconscious mind, that is making them feel unsettled. And that impacts their connection with themselves, with other people, with the world, and with God. And so what I'm doing is, when I'm working with people, we are looking at usually it's the past events from childhood, whatever happened in the past, but also certain things that happen also in adulthood, because it's not only about the childhood trauma, although the majority of the things that I work on is from the past. And then once we are able to go back and make the essentially inner child that got affected by whatever happened in the past safe again, so much shifts within a person. So it shifts in the mind and how the mind perceives the world, and in the body, so how the body feels in itself, and how we generally function as a holistic person in the world. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but it's a very, I would say, complex process. It's just not one thing, but when I work with clients, let's say, and they want to work with stress or anxiety or anger issues. So we're going to go to the past. We're going to look at where it all started, and then we're going to bring it forward, and then move it also into the future. So I also never work only about the present and the past, but we're also looking at creating the future that someone wants. So I personally believe that our soul is at the basis of it, and once we release what is not making us feel safe because of the past, then we really land here and now, become very present, very grounded. We regain curiosity about ourselves, others, and the world, and then we connect with people with so much more ease.
So basically, you're trying to say is most of it is related to the past, not really related to the present.
So I would say yes, because the thing is that most of the things that reason why a lot of people are dysregulated or struggle with certain things, a lot of it is because of the lifestyle that we are living, like the pace and the culture of urgency, and how things play out on everyday basis. That definitely plays a huge role. But then a lot of it is how our and I would say the majority of it is how our nervous system got structured as we were babies. So even from the moment of conception, and when we were in the mother womb, then how we when we got born, when we were children and teenagers. So all of that has shaped our nervous system and basically impacts who we are, how we are, and how do we find ourselves in the world and in relationships with other people. So that's why it's such a, like, I would say, multi-level process. Yeah. So and then it basically, how our nervous system is wired impacts everything in our lives. So if we've experienced specific trauma, whether it was super severe, whether it was crossing our boundaries, having our boundaries crossed, or being severely neglected, then all of that again will impact how we relate to others, how we find ourselves in the world. And a lot of people who experience a lot and have never worked through it, you will find them struggle and either isolate or and withdraw from life, or have severe anger issues and attack others in relationships. So whenever we don't feel safe with ourselves, we don't feel safe in the world. So that's also how I see us alchemizing whatever happened in the past and whatever's happening now, so that we can reconnect with ourselves, have safety within, and then safety in connection with the world and others and God as well. Because one of the big things is that when people have a lot of issues with themselves, when they judge themselves, that's when very often they also struggle connecting with God and having this more spiritual aspect of their life.
Interesting. So if walk me through someone with little awareness of this topic, or someone with medium awareness, or someone with high awareness. Majority of them, they would face a consequence in their life. They would face event in their life where would they hit invisible walls. And why I say this is differentiating between someone with a lot of awareness or someone who has no awareness. So walk me through this.
Okay, and hitting invisible walls. So it's almost like telling the story of my life, I think, if that's okay, and kind of how I found myself in therapy and why am I doing what I'm doing. Is so I started being interested in therapy and generally in psychology when I was 16. And because I went through what's very often happens in teenage times, a depression, and I didn't know how to handle certain things and what to do, and I kind of felt like an outcast. It was very difficult for me to connect with other people. I've had some wonderful friends, but still I struggled functioning in a bigger group. And so I started reading, and the book that transformed one of the key books that transformed my life was Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. So I started using the tools from the book to change, shift, and transform so many things in my life. So suddenly, so many miracles started happening. Like, there were things that I truly wanted, like going to conferences when I started university, or getting different grades when I was still in high school, where I failed something and then I was told I'm not going to get a high grade in a subject that was one of my favorite ones, or even losing weight before my high school prom. And so many things that I've achieved that were like miracles for me as I was going through the beginning of my journey when I was in high school, based on the knowledge that I gained myself. And then the interesting thing happened, that there were certain areas in my life where the change was happening almost effortlessly. Like, I would use specific tools, apply them, and then sometimes within days, weeks, sometimes months, I would, let's say, manifest or get whatever it is that I really, really wanted. But then there were certain things that were not happening. And as you beautifully said, I was hitting walls. So I was like, why certain things in other areas, like I'm using the same tools, I'm applying the same methods, but something's not happening. So I kept digging and digging, and this is where I understood that it's the subconscious programming and beliefs that we have on a very, very deep level that impact whether something will happen or not. So what I mean by that is that if in the areas of my life where I didn't have any conflicting points of views and ideas, I would very quickly manifest and create things that I wanted. And that was especially in the area of education and my career. But in other things, where it comes to relationships and the specific dynamics, I would hit walls. And then I started looking at, so what is it? What's deeper in my subconscious mind that's causing it? So that's how I work with people. It's like when they come to me, we first talk about the history of their life. We see exactly what they've gone through, what is their life right now, what was their life when they were younger, and we talk and talk and talk to fully understand how they think, what they think, and then what are the points of views and ideas that might be blocking something that they want. But also it's much, much deeper than that, looking also how the nervous system is wired based on what they've experienced in the past. So it's like when I'm working with people, I've always explained it step by step, and I explain it using vocabulary that will be most relevant to the person that I'm talking to, right? So I work with people who come to me and who are very deeply spiritual, and I work with people who are very skeptical about energy work, or anything like that, or spirituality even. So I basically, depending on who I work with, and I adapt my language, vocabulary. Of course, I'm still in integrity with who I am and the methods that I work with, but I always just adapt the vocabularies to be understood by the client, and for the client to be able to connect with me. And then we take it from there. So to see where are the walls, what created the walls, and how to, I would say, deassemble them in a gentle way with kindness and love, and not fighting. Because that's also a big thing, that when people hit the walls, they very often feel a lot of anger and rage. And unfortunately, most of it is at themselves. So they're very harsh with themselves. And the more we beat ourselves up, it actually creates the opposite effect. So, but that's kind of how we're wired oftentimes, based on what we experienced in the past. So I teach them more of how to apply self-love, kindness, and compassion, as opposed to criticizing yourself. And I'm saying it because a lot of our educational system, and I mean it in the whole world, I would almost say, is all about judgment and getting a stick or a carrot, and not about so much. I mean, it's changing now slowly, but it's not about, okay, let's look at the process. Let's look what happened. Okay, something went wrong. So from that place, how can we learn and move forward? If that makes sense. Yeah. But a lot of people are wired to be harsh on themselves. Part of it also comes from childhood, where our parents, who always do the best they can, use sometimes harsh language, like judging us and telling us, do this, don't do this, in a harsh way. So then when we grow up, we also apply that language to ourselves, constantly being hard on ourselves. And there's so much research and science right now that says the more compassion and kindness you use, the faster you're going to grow, change, shift, and transform. And it also kind of another example that I use to when working with people is when you think of a child growing up. The child will grow up in the most optimal way when it grows up in a very safe environment. Safe environment is not an environment where the parents allow the child to do whatever the child wants. Definitely not. Actually, if the parents allow too much, we also have science that shows that kids grow up being quite anxious. So it's about knowing where to set the boundaries so that there's safety and security for the kids to express their feelings and emotions, but also know where the boundaries lie. So yeah, so all of that is beautifully connected, and the whole so sorry, I just lost just so many things and ideas. So the whole idea is that the more there is safe environment when a child grows up, the more optimally they grow, and the happier and more balanced and regulated they are. So it's basically the more kindness and compassion we have towards ourselves and adults, the faster we're going to change, shift, and transform whatever we're looking at, as opposed to criticizing ourselves.
Interesting. Now, speaking of this, in terms of the awareness of the people, since I'm assuming there's a lot of people watching the channel right now or viewing this specific episodes right now, the awareness level is not at a stable level. So the awareness level in this topics is a lot. Is there awareness, first of all? If I would ask you this, what is the awareness of what you do in the space, in the world, in the sessions?
So I would say the awareness right now is so much higher than, for example, where I was reaching out for psychology books in the 90s. So the way when I was growing up, when I was a teenager and 16, and I got access to the books, was because my neighbor was interested in psychology, and so I kind of was borrowing her books. Right now, I would say it has changed so much. In Poland, which is the country that I come from, it's so easy to find therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists. It's just the access is so easy, and I feel like the awareness, and in the US, like that's, I think it's been there even earlier, and now in the Middle East as well. I feel like the awareness is growing. We have more and more therapy center in Bahrain, and I would say, when I look at the clients who come to me, I have clients who are teenagers sometimes. I mainly work with adults, and the adult clients that I've had, the oldest have been 73, 68, and they've been very open to come and do some therapy work. And also people in their 20s. I have people in their 25, 26, 27 coming and saying, oh, I want to start a family, I want to have a child, but I've gone through quite a lot and I don't want to pass it on to my children. So can you help me? And so when I hear that, it's like, when I was 25, I was very self-aware and I already did some therapy, but I don't think I've had all the vocabulary that some of the people that I work with have. When I started. So it's super interesting, and I think the awareness is so much more vast right now than ever before, and I think it's growing as well. So yeah.
What do you think the reason why we don't have such, like, for the general public, we did not have this implemented earlier? And what do you think why the pace is not at the normal pace of awareness for people? Like, still date, I think there's a lot of misconception, there's
Yeah, definitely lots of, I think in the past and still now, there are people who have lots of misconceptions about what therapy is, and they see therapy, psychotherapy as something that's there for people who are going through very severe mental issues. So that I don't like even don't want to really go into examples, but let's say very, very severe. And so they don't always think that this could be something that could help because you're dealing with a lot of stress and pressure, or because you're struggling how to communicate in an effective way with your spouse, or how to raise your children, or how to talk to the boss that's being in any way abusive and crossing boundaries. So there are daily situations, but a lot of people see therapy, and not a lot, but still quite a lot, I would say, see therapy as when someone, like let's say the word crazy sometimes is still used, that if you're, which what is crazy, like that's when people need to go to therapy. But that's not true. When people shout and scream and there's so many like anger issues, it all that means is that there are so many feelings and emotions that are bottled up inside, that this person has never or very rarely had a chance to express themselves, and they can't take it anymore. And so very often when we talk about when people go through crisis, or they feel like their whole life fall apart, and it often happens in its so-called middle age crisis, is when they've lived their whole life being shaped by the environment, by other people telling them what to do, what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do, what they shouldn't do. And they've been just kind of like a sponge taking it in, but never expressing themselves, never talking about what it is that they feel, what they want, what's going on in their internal world. And they reach a point where they cannot take it anymore, and everything collapses. The whole system collapses because it's never been natural in the first place. So there's this whole I would say positive disintegration, and it's a very difficult process at the beginning, but when you go through it, you will reach that place of peace and calm and your own self that's always been there. But it's just removing the parts that are not us. So I think a lot of people don't know that that's the case, and so sometimes there's still stigma, and they for example look at anger is such a difficult emotion because it's very often associated with abuse, crossing boundaries, and lashing out on others. But anger actually is there to communicate that our boundaries have been crossed. Anger is there to defend us. Anger is there to show that we feel fear, pain, powerlessness, or that there are unmet expectations. So these are super powerful messages. And so anger in itself is never wrong. It's just how we use it, how we communicate it. That's where not desired things can happen, like too much shouting or physical violence. That's what we don't want. But anger in itself is not wrong. So in the past, people who had lots of anger issues, they were deemed that there's something severely wrong with them. Nobody was asking like, okay, you're angry, what's underneath it? So I think the lack of awareness and the lack of education, I think it's normal, like in every area of life, we grow, we develop, there's more and more education, more and more research and science, and we all live and learn, and we move forward. But I would say there's still a lot to be done, and more and more emotional education, psychotherapy, I would say emotional education is really, really needed. And I personally believe that that should be introduced at schools. Like we should be taught basic subjects, like subjects about basic but actually crucial things in life, such as how to manage money. That's such a big topic. Nobody teaches us and expects us to deal with it once we grow up. How to manage our feelings and emotions, and how to build healthy relationships. Like we're not taught that at school. And then we grow up and we are meant to get married and do other things, and a lot of things come up, but it's not because there's something wrong with us, but there needs to be a bit more education and self-awareness. And so it's super, super, super important. So I would say like really emotional education is extremely, extremely important. As I think I've mentioned to you in one of our chat, is like I've read a beautiful post on Instagram that says that emotional education is all about crime prevention, suicide prevention, because the more we raise emotionally aware people who are safe within themselves, all of these problems become less and less.
Why do you think this is the case? Why do you think the schools, the people who make the decisions, or the people who are authorized to make these changes, why are they not adopt to that, and why they are stick to whatever was working 30, 40 years ago, and they'll just stick to it?
It's such a difficult question, I think, to answer, but I think it's just, I think it's a lot of it is, again, I would say a lack of awareness, how important that is. And that still, when it comes to education, a lot of it is based on what was in place in the past. It is shifting and changing right now. But I think this is such a huge transformation, and it takes time for it to be really, really implemented. And so, yeah. And also, like, if the people in power don't, like, they themselves don't see it as value, like, let's say people running different schools, or and also higher up, then it will just, I think it's just generational changes. It's one of those that I think with time it will change and shift, but for now
It is what it is.
it is what it is. Yeah, I would say. But I think the good thing is that a lot of people reach out, I think partially also because of social media, which has its pluses and minuses. People are exposed to so much more psychoeducation. And of course, as I say, it's pluses and minuses because there is so much incorrect information on social media regarding psychology and like how to manage things. And there are trends. Suddenly everybody talks about narcissists, and then they say, oh, this person is narcissist, this person is narcissist, where they don't really understand the concept. So that's where it's tricky with social media. But then on the other hand, if you use the information with discernment and then find the right people who are specialized in to follow, to study, to learn from, then it's so much easier. So I think there's right now a lot of people reach like do their own research and reach for resources to educate themselves, like how to be a better spouse, how to be a better parent. And I would say sometimes there are even people who take it to the extreme where they read too many books and watch too many podcasts, and then they raise their kids by the book. And then that's also not good, because it's like there's no flow, there's no spontaneity. And so again, it's about finding balance and yeah, and just becoming more in tune with ourselves and just letting nature do the job too.
Someone who doesn't maybe have the money, doesn't have the resources, maybe perhaps they doesn't have the time to go and make their research, and how they really educate themselves on the issues that they're really struggling to fix or to change. What would you advise them to do in these similar cases?
If they don't have the financial resources? So I would definitely say there are so many books. So definitely books and podcasts. And I think right now, I think money is rarely, of course, it is definitely can be a barrier, because books and podcasts will not solve any, like they will raise our awareness, help us educate ourselves. But at the end of the day, we need a specialist and another person to talk to, and someone who will help us process what has happened. So, but I think still, whatever's out there can be very, very helpful. And I would say there are therapists who work pro bono, or at least take a few clients from time to time. And there are lots of communities out as well who support people. Like, I don't know if you've heard about the psychologist and psychotherapist Nicole Lapierre in the US. She has created an amazing Instagram to bring psychology to people who cannot afford therapy. And she has an amazing self-healer circle where just for a couple, like a little bit over $20, you can sign up and be part of a community. So there are initiatives like this as well, where when people cannot afford one-to-one therapy, that they can reach out to, as I said, either people who work pro bono from time to time, or there are communities that provide like more personalized resources for people to process certain things and deal with things.
Interesting. So we can keep the links of that lady
Mm-hmm.
within the
Mm-hmm.
captions below, so that the people have an understanding of it, and then they can reach out to her and see the post and the space that she created together with the creator, for sure, because that's it would be
Mm-hmm.
a valid source for the people who are watching the episode, is where to, because
Yeah.
perhaps someone watching the episode or hearing the episode for the first time, there's like they don't have any idea about that, who
Mm-hmm.
that the right source to take from ideas from. And I love the way you put it through. Now talk to me through one of the thing that inspired me with your answer, as when you mentioned trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So in the way, in the work that you're doing right now, how do you resolve trauma?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're talking. So I will mainly focus on childhood trauma. Okay, so of course, difficult things can happen. Traumatizing things can happen also when we are adults. That usually refers to things that are like very severe accidents or war situations. So, but so much more happens when we are in childhood. And so, and it's a very, I would say, complex topic, but I'll break it down also. Um, One of the things when things happen in childhood, it's some of the things can be severely traumatic, and some of them can be just bad events that happened in our childhood. So what do I mean by that? So it's when I talked before about growing up in a safe environment and in an optimal and safe in a safe environment in order to grow up and mature optimally. um, it's not about not having obstacles, frustrations, issues, and challenges. No, we're human. And if parents try to make things too easy and remove any obstacles from their kids, they actually do not teach them how to deal with anger, frustration, and they do not build resilience. So things will happen. And that's life happens. So children will go through different things. What's very important for difficult events not to become traumatic events are 5 things: having safety, community, sense of belonging, safe touch, and the ability to take action. So when these 5 things are present, whether it's when we are children or adults, then whatever happens, no matter how difficult it is, it will be just a bad event as opposed to a traumatic event. And there is research on that. There is how they compared what happened in 9/11 in the US, and then what happened, for example, with Hurricane Katrina. In 9/11, people were able to run home to their loved ones, to say I love you, to hug them, to take action, to do so many things. So the level of PTSD was so much lower than whatever happened with the Hurricane Katrina, where people were removed from the place, they couldn't take action, and the rest of the things were not in place. So that's an example, kind of from adult life, but in childhood, that's it works in a very, very similar way. So going back to childhood, it's in childhood, trauma comes from things that there's too much of something or too little. So too much, where our boundaries are crossed physically, verbally, where there is abuse because of too much, but also when there is abuse because of too little, which is basically neglect. And that's what's less talked about. We often hear people experiencing violence, parents fighting severely, like hitting each other or hitting the child, or sexual abuse. We hear more about that, but we less hear about instances of where children grow up and they don't have enough touch. There is no natural cuddling. There is no safety and security in a sense of being able to come and share their true feelings, emotions, and just expressing what it is that they feel. And so that becomes emotional neglect, and it's much more difficult to deal with, because when people come to the therapy and they're like, something's not working, I don't know what's wrong, but things are not falling into place in my life the way I would like them to, but nothing really happened in my childhood. So there is very little that they can say, because that thing was missing. So they cannot name things like the other people who, for example, experience crossing boundaries verbally and physically. These people cannot say, so they're like, I don't know even what the problem is, but there is something. So then that doesn't make sense. So that kind of work becomes a bit more challenging initially, because a lot of things were not in place. So then your question was, how do we work with it? It's all about, there's so many different approaches. I use regular psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, and also theta healing, combine different methods depending on the client, their needs. And the idea is basically bringing them back into safety and taking care of the parts of them that got neglected and abused when they were younger. So it's what is often called the inner child work. So in therapy, whether it's in hypnotherapy, so there is a slightly altered state of mind, which is a very deep relaxation, so we can access the subconscious mind. We talk to the part of us that is the inner child to make them feel at peace, to make them find safety again. And when that happens, the nervous system that's been carrying the trauma for years finally relaxes. And the person can let go of the things that they've been holding on to so intensely for so many years. And that's when the transformation happens. And suddenly things that used to be an issue are not an issue anymore. Because the whole thing is, when we carry so much trauma that is unprocessed, it's almost like wearing glasses that are made out of the experiences that we went through. So whatever we experience here and now, if the trauma is unprocessed, takes us back into the past. So we don't really see, let's say, our boss who is just shouting at us. We see the father or the mother who's yelling at us, because that's where that raised tone of voice takes us back into the past, because the past hasn't been processed and whatever has happened there. So the moment we work on that and we release that, then that's when, let's say, if it's the boss or someone else, another adult person who is shouting at us, that's when we can respond to them from a very different position. So not a child who's scared and who's going to withdraw and become small, or a child who's going to attack, but from the position of an adult who can think rationally and address the situation in a way that will be, I would say, more productive than withdrawing or lashing out. If that makes sense, yeah?
It is making sense.
So
yeah.
it's all about, so it's not, I'm very often, when people ask me about therapy, I'm also very careful about not using the word fixing, because people sometimes come to me and they say, can you please fix me? And I'm like, there's no fixing. It's about taking care of you and to make you feel safe again, where in the past, because of the trauma, you did not feel safe. And that's all it is. I'm simplifying it tremendously, I would say. But the bottom line, that's what it is. The moment we feel safe, like I can even say from my own experience, I've gone through so much hypnotherapy, absolutely love hypnotherapy. And when I worked through one of the major things from my life, it was like, I felt like a completely different person. And it has I would say, a knock-on effect, a positive ripple effect on all areas of our lives. So I suddenly started doing things that before I somehow was anxious inside to do. Like even just going to places where before I thought, oh, maybe that area is not that safe. Suddenly I would find myself walking there, connecting with people, going out more, doing things that before I would overthink and think twice. Do I want to go there? Do I want to go to this event? Blah, blah, blah. Now, no. It's just like, I want to go, and just everything started flowing. So because when we release the trauma, our window of tolerance and like our resilience goes up. And as I mentioned before, we become present, grounded in our body, we become curious, and we connect with other people with so much more ease. And we connect with bigger groups and smaller groups. Of course, we can have preferences, whether we prefer bigger groups or smaller groups, but we have the capacity to do both. And just things become easier in life, because when we carry so much trauma, everyday life becomes almost like like we're defending ourselves, like we're living according to coping mechanism, and we are looking at where again do I have to defend myself. And when we release it, there's no more defending. We can just live with more ease, and actually connect, as opposed to constantly protect ourselves.
Interesting. I have unfold two questions out of your brilliant answer, and picture this.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving a presentation to
Mm-hmm.
16 years old student,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to take them through these 5 stages that you talked about in order not to make that incident as a tragic incident. It's just a bad day rather, or a bad event, rather than a traumatic event. Walk me through, what would you say to them?
Okay, so using the 5 things that I've mentioned that are so important. So it's definitely having friends that you feel safe with, that you can talk to about whatever it is that you want, and of course having safe family, which is not always the case that there is safety in the family. But let's say ideally you have the mom and the dad where you can go home and cry and say, this is what happened. The teacher was upset, was, I don't know, harsh with me, or other kids bullied me at school. So you have the person a person or people that you can talk to. They will hug you, they will comfort you. Then you have a community, so you can rely also on your extended family and on the teachers at school as well. That's the community at school. And you can then soothe yourself, be soothed by others, and then you can take action. So whatever will be the appropriate action in the situation. So your parents can support you, or the teacher can support you. If there was a conflict with other kids or bullying or something, then action can be taken. So you are not by yourself in this incident, and not knowing what to do and developing a sense of powerlessness, but you are supported by the community. Because then it's not about finding, I never believed like it's finding about who's at fault, but it's trying to get to the core of what really happened. Because even the kids who bully, they're not bad kids. These are kids who are most likely bullied at home, where the parents are overpowering, over dominating, or someone else within the family. And when they go to school, they find someone else who feels like, oh, they can bully them because they come across as weaker or more sensitive or something like this. So it's not about putting someone down and then just protecting one person, but taking care of everybody and giving the support to everybody in the circle, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, and making sure that all kids are safe. Safe and secure, so they can connect again. It's not about, oh, let's punish this one and let's just take care of this one. No, both of them carried pain. Both of them suffered within, and that's why whatever happened. Yeah. So it's about finding that resolution and looking at what are the unmet needs. One of the books that has changed my life is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, who has created this amazing technique and approach of how to communicate with people. I highly recommend this book. In the book, he talks about how to communicate without violence and how to communicate through the heart. And he gives examples from private life, educational circumstances, political circumstances, so business circumstances. So basically it all boils down to recognizing people's needs, the unmet needs, and why are they behaving the way they are behaving, because some deeper needs are not met and unresolved. And yes, once we grow up, we become more self-aware, and we need to take care of these needs ourselves, but still in cooperation with others. But it's also all about the group dynamic and supporting each other and figuring out, like being mirrors for each other, understanding each other, and and figuring it out as a group as well and as a community.
So what are the things that most you talked about the first 2 things? What are the other 3?
So I think I mentioned all of them, out of the 5, yeah?
Yeah.
So safety will be being able to talk to people and just go somewhere to talk to someone that is safe and secure. Community would be the teachers or extended family. And then touch will be being able to hug someone, taking action, involving others and seeing what could be done, and a sense of belonging that comes from also, again, having the community, knowing that you belong to the family, you belong to the school, so that there's always someone you can rely on and that you can go and talk to and be understood and not just dismissed. Yeah.
Now, I said there is two questions unfolded from your
Okay, so
answer.
it's the
That is the
second.
first
Yeah.
one that you had
Uh-huh.
answered it. The second one is, in your opinion, or in the way you were talking about different type of therapist and different type of healing, you mentioned three.
Mm-hmm.
And for the benefit of the listeners who are watching the show,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they don't have what's hypnotherapist is, what's
Mm.
that is, what's that is. So from your
Mm-hmm.
understanding, and I would also relate this to a viewer who would be like 18 years old, someone
Mm-hmm.
who's watching right now, 18 years old, who
Mm-hmm.
want to understand these terminology that you had used. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking you are a subject matter expert in it, but
Mm-hmm.
then the
Mm-hmm.
listener perhaps not. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are the difference between them,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the function of them?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's so basically like hypnotherapy and theta healing, they're just different modalities. There are so many different methods that we can work with. So these are just some of the ones. There are so many other ones that I use, but and so when I work with clients, let's put it this way, I use talk therapy. So we talk, we analyze things, we ask questions, we dive deep within to see how thoughts and feelings and emotions and behaviors are all interconnected. That's a big part. That's more part of the cognitive behavioral therapy, to understand that your thoughts impact your feelings and emotions, that impacts your behavior, and the other way around. So they all impact each other. So if you change your thoughts, your behaviors will change. If you change, and your feelings will change, and your physical reactions will change. So all of these things are interrelated. So that's one part of how we analyze things when people come to therapy. Just yeah, that. So that would be the first one. I could go more, but just in general, hypnotherapy is more about being able to access the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is a part of our brain and also our body and the nervous system, where the experiences that we have gone through are kind of written or wired in, and we cannot really access them just by talking, or it's more difficult. We need to go into a very relaxed state of mind, which basically is all about like our cognitive brain. So the frontal lobe goes at a much faster pace than our subconscious mind, the limbic brain. So it's all about slowing down the frontal lobe and how that front part of the brain works, and so that we can access the subconscious mind and meet the inner child or the parts of us that got impacted in certain ways and take care of them. So then that's when I guide. So, and there are also so many different types of hypnotherapy. So I would have to go into detailed description of different methods, which is not really necessary, because that could be, I would say, even overwhelming. But whenever I always choose the method that will be most accurate for someone, and then that's when I describe it. But the idea is that hypnotherapy is all about going into a more relaxed state of mind to rewire things in the nervous system. And what's very important is that when we do hypnotherapy, the client is still in control of themselves and everything, because sometimes people come, it's, I would say it doesn't happen as often anymore, that people can be scared of hypnotherapy because they think that I'll have some control over them. And I always show them how, no, like at any moment in time, you're just going to be deeply relaxed. I will just take you through a process of deep relaxation, and that's when you immediately go into a hypnotic state. And at any moment in time you feel like, okay, I've had enough, you can open your eyes and walk out of the room. And so of course I don't recommend that, because I need to finish the process and close you up, but I'm never in charge, like I'm never in control of the other person. So it's always a collaboration, it's always a dialogue, and we talk and talk and talk during the hypnotherapy. And it can have different purposes, and so many different hypnotherapy methods of like preparing someone how to, for example, pass an exam and just deal with school stress. So programming for whatever we want to achieve, or releasing things from the past that are holding us back. Okay. When it comes to theta healing is it's a different modality that I absolutely love as well. And because it works on 4 different levels. So there is a core level. So everything that we've taken from our parents from the moment we were conceived to 8 years old and later as well. Then there is a history level, which is the collective consciousness. So we are born into a specific collective consciousness, into a specific country, customs, religions, social rules. So that's another one. Then there's soul level, which is what our soul comes with onto this planet. And then there is genetic level. So we look at everything that we've inherited in our DNA from our family. And with Theta Healing, it's all about looking at which of these are serving us and allowing us to move forward and live in harmony with who we truly are and what our dreams are and what we want to achieve. And where are some programmings and points of views and ideas that used to serve us or people in the past, but are not serving us anymore. If that makes sense. So it could be a point of view or an idea from the past that, I don't know, last century was very useful and now somehow it's not useful, or certain belief system that this is how it works, and then it's really kind of clashing with our soul on what it is that we want. So of course, when I say what we want, I don't want to say that it's all about. I work with people so that they are that they become who they truly are more if they've been if they've experienced so many difficult things. So it's about reconnecting with their true self, but it's always about, if I reconnect with my true self, how am I more connected to others, to other individual people, to communities, to the world, feeling safe in the world, to God. And so it's not about, because some people say that more Western psychology focuses only on the individual. I don't believe that. I believe it's in the connection. So healthy, autonomous, sovereign individual who is interdependent and interconnected with other people. That's how I see a healthy, like a person who functions most optimally in the world, if that makes sense.
It is making sense, yeah. In your work, and I want to dive into this question because I love the way you had explained your process of identifying the difference in therapy before proceed with any individual. So you will do your own assessment. So using the science, using the somatic haptic and the energy within that person. Now my question for you is, when you combine the best best strategy for the specific case that's in front of you, and obviously not all the cases are the same because
of course,
hence our fingers are not the same. Now, when you had put that strategy into the person and then said, oh, actually I would do this or this, walk me through one of your experiences where you use this strategies and it has changed the person's trajectory after your sessions.
Okay, so I don't think I can give you very specific examples because of confidentiality. Yeah, so I cannot. I have so many examples of maybe I should talk about myself. Just to see,
the whole point of it is just to allow the audience to have a feel what is that looks like without mentioning names or the person who had done it. It's just examples for a general people so that they get the benefit out of it. And that's the purpose of having you in the podcast.
So for example, like I can give you just a couple of general examples of when people are very rigid about what they want and what they don't want in life. So rigidity is actually a trauma response. So like yes, there are people who know exactly what they want, but it's not rigidity. It's just like, okay, they know what they want and what they're following. But there's some people who are very rigid, like, no, I don't want this, or I want, but so sometimes when they come to therapy and we start like digging and looking at certain things, and it's not about trying to convince them to change their mind, but we just unpack certain ideas. It turns out that suddenly they thought like, oh, they don't want to get married, or they don't want to have a family, that we work through certain things, and it turns out that they want to, but there were certain ideas behind it of what it's supposed to look like that were blocking them. if that makes sense. So like I have so many, like, work with so many people where they're like, oh, I never want to be a parent because I don't want to pass on to my children what I've experienced in the past, because like certain things happened that were so difficult. And then we're like, and then we work on it, we release their certain things, and then they're just really, really amazing parents. Or people who want to study one thing in their life, and then we kind of look into it, and then they choose a completely different path in their lives. So what other examples? Or people who are just afraid of taking a certain step. Also, I'm just thinking, because I work a lot with people regarding relationships. So they, for example, they want to be in a relationship, but they have so many ideas of how it's not going to work out. They haven't had a positive example of a happily working marriage, and so they're like, no, I don't want to because I'm scared this and this and this is going to happen. So then we also unpack it and release it, and then they're super happily married, or they find out that actually their life is so much better, but than they ever thought, than they ever appreciated, but because they've been carrying so much inside of them from the past, that, as I mentioned before, it was like they were carrying that glasses, that even though their life is really aligned right now and like things are really, really working, but because of the trauma and the negative events that they've experienced, that is all being projected onto here and now, and so sometimes they don't appreciate what's around them. So the more we release these things and make them feel safe again, then how they perceive the reality completely changes.
Yeah, I can tell. Have you ever had someone who has radically and have sort of believes that it has been passed from his mother, father, whoever that it is, and that something is he believed in so much, and then you have to unlock that belief, and when you have done, magic happen.
Yeah, lots of examples here, because the thing is that when it comes to work, so most, as I said, the beliefs that we inherit comes from so many different, like the 4 different sources, right? But very often it's what our parent taught us, and our parents teach us a lot of amazing things that are very useful, that really, really help us, and yet they do the best they can because they also have certain things that they carry from their past that they haven't processed. So some of their perception of things might also be limited, and they might, because of, let's say, because they've experienced war, because they've experienced very difficult times, subconsciously they believe that the world is unsafe and they project it onto someone, right? Like I come from a country that experienced so many years of war and unsettlement and partitions and everything. So I had to do a lot of clearing for myself to just, even though in the depth of my soul, I always felt like world is an amazing place to live, to discover, to explore. And I've always felt very open and safe to travel, be various places. But there was a moment where I actually felt like, no, there's something was stopping me and blocking me. And it was all that, I would say, genetic projection of my parents and also my ancestors who've gone through so many difficult things. So I needed to work on myself also to release certain things, to open up more on another level. So yeah, so it's basically, what I mean to say is that whatever our parents give us is super, super precious. And then once we grow up and become adults, we need to go through these things that we've learned from our parents and see what works for us and what doesn't, like what still aligns and what doesn't, because that's, and sometimes there are conflicts, of course, between parents, but I always look at it, it's not about breaking the bonds or not talking to parents. No, it's about having the connection, having the love, having the beautiful relationship with our parents, but also acknowledging the generational differences. Because if the next generation wouldn't be taking things forward, then the world would never be changing for the better, right? Of course, this is a difficult topic because some things are changing for worse, some things are changing for better, and we all have different opinions about that. But I think it's all about creating a dialogue between generations and acknowledging that we all will have different points of views and ideas. And I think as long as it comes from kindness, honoring, respecting each other, then it's all good. It's more that when it leads to, I don't know, wars and severe conflicts. Yeah. But the big thing for me is, yeah, about respect for all ages and all generations, and just seeing what really works and being open and being curious, like even like when the younger people are like suggesting certain things, so not always opposing, but I'm not saying always, but being curious about why and what, and then other generations wanting to maintain something. Again, it's all about curiosity and connection and understanding each other and co-creating things.
I love that. Now, speaking of what you had said and mentioned, I love the way you are talking about it actually, because I could feel there is a lot of emotions. I could feel that you are really passionate in the way you're explaining it. It is very evident for me to see that the aura and the way you're trying to bring up a stories, although not to mention the confidentiality out of the piece, and then at the same time make it simplistic to someone who would listen and out there, and make it really easy for him to digest. So I really see that in the way you are speaking. I can see there's a lot of passion in the way you kind of put yourself to it. But at the same time, do you think till date with adults, especially at that level, because I can see that there's majority of we is having a mistakes or unfolded beliefs or unlocked out things is where it happens at the adult time. And then when we do it ourselves, don't mention that what I love about what you said as well is that we live in different generations. So my father and mother, when they teach me something within it was working in their generation, now the time is different, the time has changed. So it could be valuable, relatable. However, the time is not there anymore. So the circumstances change, the time and everything is changed because due to the timing as well, that something will change. But through your experience when as an adult, do you think that childhood trauma is still impacting them?
Like the adults now, yeah, I think unless you resolved it, and it's not about also like I don't know, working on everything from childhood, but it is like there if certain very difficult things have happened in childhood, and we are struggling in connecting and being present and peaceful in our adult life, so we constantly withdraw, or we have so many conflicts and so many, or so we withdraw or we isolate, then or yeah, so then it means that there is still things from the past. So whenever there's suppressed trauma, suppressed feelings and emotions, suppressed, repressed, when there is anger, all of it basically leads to shame. And shame is one of the, I would say, I don't want to say most negative feeling, but shame basically means I am bad. And when people carry that within themselves because of the trauma, because of the suppressed feelings and emotions, anger and other things that they or just anything that's suppressed and repressed, then that leads to isolation. That leads to more anger and directed at other people. And that also has a lot of medical consequences, because whenever we don't express our feelings and emotions in a way that is healthy and good, and we suppress it, that also causes headaches and tension, and so in our body, and then other diseases and all of this. There's a lot right now, there's a lot of science that shows how a lot of medical conditions are connected there, and there's the psychosomatic way. So if things are not processed and we're struggling in certain areas, then yeah, most of the time it's going to be related to certain things that happened in childhood. And it could be trauma through, sometimes they say the big T, the small t, so lots of different things. And so it's all, I think it's, if we feel like we carry pain within, and our heart is constantly heavy, and there's we can perceive that there's and feel the emotions and the feelings that are suppressed, and sometimes we don't even feel them because we're so numb, because we've learned to function in a way where our body's frozen and we're numb. But we can tell there's no ease, there's no flow. Then I would say it's always worthy to go to see what's there, unpack, take care of these parts, apply love, care, and attention, and the right therapy work, in order to let go and function with much more ease in life and thrive. So and then learn from this point forward how to function in a healthier way. So how to regulate one's nervous system, because it's all about, so it's the taking care of whatever happened in the past and learning, how do I take care of my nervous system? What self-care, what is self-care first of all? And how do I, and self-care is such a big topic. It has so many categories, and so that we need to apply on daily basis or weekly basis, monthly basis, in order to actually function optimally. Because a lot of people think that self-care is like, oh, I'm going to go to spa and on a Friday, and that's self-care, or I'm going to get my my nails done, or my hair, or I'm just going to go out with my girlfriends for coffee, for lunch or something. But self-care actually, self-care has, as I mentioned, has 6 categories. So there is the emotional level, so taking care of our feelings and emotions, psychological level, so the mental aspect and how we feel there. Then there is a physical aspect, then there's spiritual aspect, personal, and professional. And so only when we tick all of these boxes, and there are different strategies, of course, for all of the different categories, then that's when we feel most at peace and fulfilled. Because the whole thing is that people often forget that we're holistic human beings. So all of these categories, as a holistic human being, that's why I often say that I also work very much holistically. Like I like to use the term that I'm very much a holistic therapist, even though I might not use all the techniques and methods myself, but I will refer clients, like I will refer them to work with someone who does yoga therapy, for example. So I'll involve the body as well, do certain things in the office, but then refer them to specialists that work with the body as well in a direct way. So so all of these areas are extremely important, and we need to be able to know, okay, are we taking care of ourselves? And when we are in good mood and we are feeling well, then generally we will tick all the boxes naturally on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, that we'll take care of ourselves in all of these areas. But it's when we're not well, when we're depressed, then all of these things feel like a chore, and we kind of neglect ourselves. And so the self-neglect, I would say, is super, super prevalent, especially if we experience neglect when we were children. And one more thing that relates to that is that a lot of people, partially because of trauma, partially because of education, they love to think that that it's all about cognition and thinking, and that human beings are cognitive beings. So all I need to do is just to think, read more books, and that's it. And the other areas like the body, the emotional, are not important. But it's actually very much, I would say, not true. Like, we like to think we're cognitive beings, but we're actually emotional beings. So unless we take care of our feelings and emotions and work on our emotional maturity, then things are more challenging. So the emotional maturity or emotional intelligence is so important. And there's a lot of research right now that shows that people who are really successful in life are those whose EQ is higher than IQ. Because you can quite easily learn the knowledge, the skills, but how do you apply it in life? Can you connect with people? Can you find ways of actually using the knowledge in a way that's going to take you forward and enable you to be a contribution to other people if you don't have the EQ?
Interesting. And emotional intelligence is one of my favorite subjects that I want to talk about. And I give you example to challenge you even further with that. But before we go to this, let me just unfold what you have said.
Okay.
Speaking of this, could you please walk me through these 6 things again with an example for the listeners so that they can relate, and how could they at least have an idea of tackle each one of them? And because you mentioning, and I love the way you strategize your answer, because you literally have to say emotions and then mentally, and then you start with the rest, which is body and the other stuff. And I knew now when you had concluded your answer by bringing that topic to the emotional intelligence, the importance of it. So walk me through these 6 stages, because that's something the listener would be highly benefit of.
Okay, so let's start with the physical aspects of self-care. So that could be as simple as taking a shower, having a roof over your head. So it's going to be like very much body oriented, but also having physical safety of having home, regular exercise, so important, taking supplements, having medical checkups. Yes. So these are just the examples. So all about our body and the physicality. Then the emotional one, that could be related very much to our hobbies and our feelings and emotions. Could be related to crying, saying I love you to ourselves, to the people that we really love. And so it could be about emotional, so expressing our feelings and emotions, taking care of them and processing them, and being in touch with them. Then the psychological would be more related to, it could be therapy, it could be journaling, it could be going to the theater, also any kind of arts that will be related to emotions and psychology. Different techniques and methods of emotional regulation will go into the psychological aspects. And before I continue, is that I'm kind of crossing the different, going across the categories, because in some with some activities, it's the intention that we give it that will fulfill a different function. So, for example, we can take cooking. For example, so cooking will be part of self-care. That is very physical, because we want to feed our body food that is high quality and it's healthy, that we prepared ourselves. But then it can have a psychological aspect, because let's say if we love cooking, we're going to be very mindful while cooking. So we'll be very present here and now. And mindfulness is something that is one of the practices that truly brings us to here and now, grounds us, and really calms down our brain when we're suddenly truly focused on chopping the carrots and not thinking about 5 topics in the background. So it could be a very mindful and experience of taking care of our mind. And then it could be emotional if cooking is our hobby. Yeah, so it's really the intention behind the activity, in most cases, not all cases, that will determine the area of self-care. Okay, so physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual. Spiritual could be praying, reading any holy books. It could be also going to the beach. Because it could be intentional movement and dance. So spiritual is anything that connects us to our soul. So it definitely could be religious practices and so much more. Or combined. Meditation could be, yeah. Meditation could be also, yeah, could be related very much to spiritual. Meditation could be also psychological, because we also calm down the mind, and it includes the body as well, yeah, and emotions as well, because it helps us to regulate the emotions as well in some cases. Then there is personal. Personal is about our social life, hobbies. I can just do anything that is for me. So that could also be traveling. That could also be doing anything that I, as a person, enjoy. And then the professional, it will be about our work. But also for people who don't work, let's say they're a stay-at-home mom or dad, it's all about how do we manage our energy expenditure. So let's say, do we take enough breaks? And that's whether we are a stay-at-home mom or dad, or we just don't work at that moment, but we are studying, for example, we're a student. So do I take enough breaks? Do I have a support network? Like when I'm at work, do I have colleagues I can rely on, and a supervisor that I can go and talk to, or teachers, or do I do the job that I actually want? Do I want to change my job? And so everything related to the professional and how we manage the energy, whatever it is that we do, as I said, if we don't work currently. So all of them, and as I said before, if we are in a good space, we do them very, very very naturally. And I actually created a really nice handout that as soon as my website is updated, I think it's going to be on the website as a download, to have all the 6 categories written down with the examples. So then it's like we can, but generally we can just write them down, and then just even on one like just you can sit with yourself and see which areas of my life I feel like I'm fulfilled and it feels good, and where I'm actually neglecting myself, and then really creating a plan to change it. And it's not like a big plan like what a lot of people do now with New Year resolutions. Let's plan 15 things and changing 15 habits at once. Nope, it doesn't work. It's all about bringing in really small changes, like even just breaks of just stopping during the day and checking in. How am I feeling? What's going on? Have I drank enough water? Have I gone to the bathroom when I need, or not 5 emails later? So all of these like little things. Have I eaten enough meals today? And not praising yourself, or, oh, I've gone through the whole day, 8 hours, haven't eaten anything. And being proud of it, as opposed to, well, I think I've just neglected myself. Yeah. And of course, sometimes I also don't want to take it to extreme. Yes, because sometimes it's necessary. So we have to have resilience to go through certain things. But if it's not necessary in that particular moment, how do we take care of ourselves so that we are nurtured on all of these levels? And sometimes just asking the question in the morning or in the evening, what do I need? Which areas of my life I feel like I'm not nurtured and something's missing? And then what steps can I take to feel more nurtured and feel better?
Emotional intelligence is something is big, is a big term, and especially with today's world and the changes of that. And someone with the high emotional intelligence or EQs, most probably he would be succeed rather than others. It's not the knowledge, it's not the experience, it's he being himself as emotional intelligent and the other good skills that it's varied between case to case. But someone would have a general understanding of, let's say, a good emotional intelligence and aware of himself and others as well. But he lacks at certain point when there is a difficulty position happen. Let's say someone with high emotional intelligence and understand it, but a certain of difficulties when the amygdala are wide open, he make big decisions and he react on the things that he should not have. And that's something he's over and over falling into the same trap. Although he knows it and he knows how to fix it, but for a reason or another, he cannot control the amygdala and make a reactive situations, and then he would feel so much pain because that could be also a traumatic and related to the things that he have done. What would be your strategy if someone is listening right now who would be in that exact case, and someone who has high emotional intelligence of understanding what is amygdala and what it is that. So it's be good also to explain it from your point of view, because I knew that you know it better than I am, and then it would be good if you relate it with a certain situation, because this is one of the things that I have noticed people fall to it, which is reacting in angry positions, and then people will use their angerness and to imply on them.
Okay, so I think so like I would say the experience is important, knowledge and skills are important, and then the emotional intelligence, I think all of them are important, right? So they all come together. But being able to So emotional intelligence for me is about being able to manage your feelings and emotions in a specific situation. So you referred to amygdala, which is the part of our brain that's sometimes referred to as the lizard brain, which the function of amygdala is to protect us. So when something comes up and we feel like this is danger, so it reacts in 4 different ways. We either go into the state of fight, flight, we fight, flight, fawn, or we freeze, so we numb. So it's usually fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is when we go into people pleasing. So what happens is when we go into that stage, it's our brain, the amygdala, gets a signal that there is danger. It quickly decides which action it's going to take, and our body prepares for it. So the stress levels go, the stress hormones go high up, and our body functions in a very different way. Because we need to prepare ourselves to take action. And what's very important here is that the rational brain, the cognitive brain, frontal lobe, stops working. Because when you think of it, how amygdala got created when long time ago, where we were facing very dangerous animals. Yes, like, so when there was a tiger attacking you, there is no need to really think. You cannot think. You either fight or flight. Yeah. So the cognitive thinking at that moment is not necessary. It switches off so that you can quickly take the action. And so now let's say you're at work, you're talking to your boss or your colleague, and you get triggered, and so your brain goes into that fight, flight, or freeze, and then so the cognitive brain is not working. So what I would say here is learning techniques of how to calm yourself down in that situation. And that would be, one of them is the first thing to do is to take a deep breath. Because when you start breathing slowly, and especially you take a deep breath in and you slowly breathe out. So the breathing out is usually twice as long as breathing in. That gives a signal to your brain, I'm safe. I'm safe. There's no need to fight. There's no need to flight, run away. There's no need to freeze. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. And it's not always that easy, of course. There's different situations. So but breath is the first thing to do. Or there are other somatic techniques where we can bring ourselves to here and now. And then, and that's, I would say that's what emotional intelligence is. That's the big part, because we will be triggered in different situations. As long as we live, we are adults, and no matter how much therapy we do, there will be moments where, because that's also what I'm going to connect, what trigger is. Trigger is when our brain, like we are here and now, but our brain is projecting something that happened in the past onto the moment. Yeah. So like someone is yelling at us and we remember our dad or mom or uncle or someone that was very important in our childhood yelling at us. So then we want to attack, and because now we are in a different position. So the idea is to learn how to take care of ourselves in the moment and how to take a break. Like if, for example, these are conflicts in marriage and or friendships, and the discussion escalates, it's so important to take a break, minimum for 20 minutes. That's based on science. To go and do something else, tell each other, I care about you, let's take a break, and come back in 20 minutes. Sometimes could be half an hour, I would say maximum a day if possible. And then reconvene and talk about the topic again. And after the stress hormones go down, because as long as the stress hormones are up and the amygdala is activated, there's not much point talking. Even if we've done lots of training about just emotions and about communication skills, the moment our amygdala is triggered, all the communication techniques go out of the window. So it's about bringing ourselves back into safety here and now. Okay, if it's a topic that keeps reoccurring, so like problems at work, like you've mentioned, then or in relationship, and then I would say it's really important to do therapy to see what is it that is being triggered every time someone is talking to you in a specific way. And it's really, really beautiful, because once you work through it, what happens is that you're not going to get triggered. You might still feel uncomfortable and in some kind of distress, but it won't be to the point that the amygdala will take over, and that the frontal lobe and the cognitive brain will not be thinking. You will be able to think, and in most cases, the situations will become irrelevant to you. So in a way that someone's behaving in a specific way, once you overcome it within and you feel safe and secure within, and it doesn't take you back into the trauma or whatever happened, you will be like, yeah, someone is shouting or someone's just behaving in a specific way, and you're like, okay. And you can respond appropriately to the moment, because your response is based on here and now and what the person is doing, and not on you being the little child who was yelled at, shouted at by an adult when you were in a disempowered position.
I love what you're saying, because you kind of had related it to a situation where you have a regular appearance with that person, in a way that you conclude your answer. In the way I felt it is that you conclude it in a way that it feels like if it is for someone who you would be in regular contact with, assuming that it's not about someone, so that there would be not a specific triggers that pulls me off and then connect me with my other issues in the previously, and then bring it. So imagine that, picture that someone who's struggling, let's say someone in the street just did not give, let's say, signals, when then he suddenly turn, and then you take an action like, oh my God, you like for example, you curse at him and he cursed to you, and then you go and fight. Like, I want to dive into a way, and I intentionally make it difficult just to make sure, because I am sure a lot of listeners would be really benefited from this, especially in non-regular communication or no-regular contact with a person. And it happens that it says he triggered him or something like that, and then he immediately took an actions. And I'm talking with really great examples I have seen within my own eyes. And when I talk with the people and I try to explain to them what's emotional intelligence or what's amygdala does for you when you make a reaction on that, although he knows it, but he falls on the same trap over and over. With the people he knows, perhaps he might have, let us agree to disagree, that we can't carry on in this conversation. Let's rejoin in this topic at a later stage. That would be so with someone who have regular contact. But with someone who have not regular contact, but this thing is triggering him, like, what would your advice would be? Rather than first one is taking a breath, what would be the other thing?
I think the same thing, because I think it's like if we notice that we have a lot of anger in different areas of our lives, we really need to look at what's behind it. So whether it's in relationships, like with a spouse, with close friends, or whether it's the road rage. So I would say it's very, very, very similar. So I will go back once again to relationships, because I kind of mentioned going to therapy and all of that, but a lot of trauma can also be released in relationships that are really, really safe and secure. So sorry, I'm kind of taking you back a little bit, but I'll go back to your question. Because trauma happens in relationship and trauma is healed in relationships. So the whole thing is also not always, because some people think like, oh, I'm going to work through all my trauma and only then I'm going to find the right partner or enter a relationship. No. We can enter a relationship, and it's just as long as we are with someone who is also self-aware and who is willing to talk about difficult things, work through things, and create the safe and secure environment so our bodies can relax and we can feel safe and secure again. So I would say that. Then when it comes to like small situations like road rage that is often happens, I would say it's the same thing. It could be that we carry something from the past, and so again, there's some kind of disempowerment, and so there's someone who gets into our way, and we can't, or just drives not following rules, and we constantly every day get angry. So then if it's every day constantly, it could be because there's something bigger. But sometimes it could be just because our tolerance, like a window of tolerance on that day is lower because we haven't slept enough, we haven't eaten enough, so we haven't done the basic things to take care of ourselves. So that's why I said self-care is so important, and self-care is not about being selfish, but the more you take care of yourself, the more easily and more beautifully you connect with other people, because then you don't function from self-lack, and you can more easily connect to others. So you are more resilient. Like if you've slept enough, you've taken care of yourself enough, like you've eaten enough, then you are on the road. And of course, it's also, again, let's say anger is very helpful and useful. So of course, if someone kind of suddenly does some kind of movement on a highway that is not safe, it's a normal response to get angry and be like, what just happened? Yeah, because it's about your safety and security, your life. So there's no wrongness in getting angry at that moment. Now, if our nervous system is functioning optimally, we're going to get angry, and then we're going to calm down and regulate ourselves back into safety and security. And that's a normal, healthy response. It's just not about being in that anger constantly. Yeah. And then finding if we're constantly in that anger and we're constantly triggered by something that's new, by something that's unexpected, then that's when I would look into it, like what's behind it. Yeah, and definitely take care of ourselves in that sense. So again, self-care is not about being selfish. Like I even heard a beautiful quote by Elizabeth Gilbert, who said that, I don't remember exactly the words, but in one of her interviews, she said that she said something about that hurting people, that where she hurt people most when she was least taking care of herself and constantly just expecting and being in the entitlement towards other people as opposed to taking care of herself. So really taking care of you is automatically taking care of other people. And it's true self-care is never just like self-centered, narcissistic, egoistic. No. I take care of myself so I can meet you from a better space. Yeah, so like if in the moment of conflict and let's say there's a difficult topic that triggers two people, so when the whole conversation escalates, we take a break, take care of each other, calm down or co-regulate, and then we reconnect. So that self-care allowed us to meet each other again, because now our brain is functioning more optimally again, and we can talk about whatever the issue was in more peace and more calm, and in a way that will help us move forward and come up with solutions and strategies that will make things work, as opposed to constantly just defend each other and just defend, criticize, and all of the other behaviors that actually are obstacles to connection.
If I take you back to 16 years old Dagmara, before you reading that book who changed your life trajectory, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, I don't think I would say much, but what I would definitely do is give her a big, big, big hug. And I think just sit next to her in presence and silence, like validating her presence more than the hug or a lot of hugs. And then I think I would say that she doesn't worry, that it's not as complicated as she thinks it is, and that she will definitely make it through and reach places that are beyond her wildest imagination, and that she will have amazing friends and connect with people more easily, because I think that was her biggest fear at that time. So I've always had a couple of very, very close friends, but being part of communities and bigger groups, that was a challenge, and now I feel like so blessed belonging to different communities, different groups. So yeah.
Through my research, I realized that you've been doing 23 years of teaching, and then you shift to therapy. Why?
Okay, so I got interested in, as I said, in personal development psychology when I was 16. And then I started my therapy when I was 21, and I took a break, and then later. When I was in high school, I always knew I wanted to teach English. So English has changed my life. I could talk about how that happened for a long time. It's a long story, but the whole idea is that it's been a very important part of my life. So I knew that I wanted to study English, and then I knew that I wanted to teach English, because English has changed my life, and I saw it as a kind of like something that opened so many doors and windows for me into another world, by being able, like even later reading books in English on psychology, personal development. There were very few in the 90s available in Polish, and so the moment I spoke English, so much has opened up for me. So then I went into teaching English. I've always loved teaching English. I started teaching when I was 17, without even having any formal education. I've always had excellent teachers who taught me how to teach just by observing them. And so I studied how to teach English, and then I've done that for 23 years. I was also a teacher trainer, a curriculum manager. That's how I came to Saudi, as teaching English initially, and working as a curriculum manager in college, and then teaching also at university here in Bahrain. And I've always loved teaching. And in a way, from 2011, so I officially started English somewhere in 2000, like when I was 17, but let's say I don't count these 2 years, even though I was already teaching. So, and in 2011, that's when, after a few years of therapy, I started looking into different methods and modalities of, first initially to support myself even further, but the moment I started like learning the different methods and we were practicing, I just absolutely started loving with working with people, and people would always come to me and ask for help and support, and I just loved it. But at the beginning, I didn't see it as a full-time job. So in Poland, my own business was like I was doing both, teaching English, working in colleges, universities, different companies, and private language schools, and on a side always seeing clients. And then when I came to the Middle East, it was a bit less, but still sometimes people would find me. And then finally first in 2017, I got the job offer to start being a psychotherapist full time. And also throughout that time, I've been doing lots of education regarding psychotherapy. And 2017, I didn't feel ready for it yet. And then the same invitation came in 2021. And that's when I fully changed from being a part-time therapist, psychotherapist, and healer and life coach. And I started doing this job full time. So it's almost, I wouldn't say always been both at the same time, but throughout a big part of my life. But I've always loved both. And but then after 23 years in education, I got to the point where I think, yeah, it was amazing. And I still love teaching, and I still see myself teaching and using the skills, like even doing different kinds of workshops on mental health and personal development. I feel like all the skills that I have from education are really feeding into my current career as a public speaker, as a trainer, but also the way I work with people one-on-one in the therapy room. Like I often get feedback that I can just explain difficult concepts in a very simple way that makes a difference for a lot of people. So yeah. So it's kind of, I hope I answered your question, that it changed that way.
Yeah.
So
as a healer, one question that's roaming in my head, as a healer, have you ever had a difficult conversation when you had anyone, like, let's say, you don't have to mention the exact moment, but
Yeah.
but I'm assuming something like that. Oh, actually, psychotherapist is for sick people.
Oh, like people saying that, like what I've said at the beginning, I think that they say, oh, that it's for using word crazy people.
Crazy people or something like that.
Yeah. I've had these situations numerous times, I would say, but that's when I really just sit and explain that whenever there is pain, there's trauma. And so then it's always worth looking at it. And if someone is like, they're looking at that someone is sick, or they are behaving in a way that is not controllable and all of that, then there is just always some kind of big pain behind it. So would you really, and I know what I want to say. So the example I often give is that people are so much more receptive to physical pain. Okay, so let's say someone has a deep cut on their body or broke a limb or something. Everybody's going to run and help, right? Because the person is in pain. They're in physical pain and it's visible. So they're going to run, help, create medical help. But somehow that doesn't happen when we're talking about emotional pain, unless there's death in the family or someone, because these instances are seen as a source of pain. But like if someone experienced other things, was dismissed, rejected, criticized. So that pain is very often, because it's invisible, we treat very often what's invisible as less important, and it's so severely invalidated. But if we really looked at it, that no, just because it's not, like there's so many things that are not seen. Like, right, we don't see our feelings and emotions, and somehow we feel them and we act upon them. We don't so just because we cannot see them, or kind of we see them because like we don't see them fully, but we see them in other people's bodies, right? Because of course our body shape and posture changes when we carry lots of pain and trauma and all of that. So, but knowing that it's all interconnected and appreciating that someone is feeling the emotional pain, and it's as painful, and sometimes it's more painful than the physical pain. And so vice versa, right? So knowing that, again, is going back to knowing that we are emotional beings, not only cognitive. And so all of these parts are so important. So when people say things like this, I usually, if there is any kind of openness, I explain, I talk to them about it. And if there is no openness, then what can you do?
Inspiring.
Yeah. So it's all about, I think, raising their own self-awareness. And usually I would say when people have such an approach, then they themselves have lots of suppressed, repressed, hidden feelings and emotions that they've never dealt with. And they've been shamed for that as well. And so they see it as not important. They judge themselves as bad, and that this is not important, but deep within they suffer. So
That's really interesting, because one thing I wanted to notice, and because I'm someone who is really passionate about Formula One, and someone who's like, I've heard one of the things that happens at the paddock, like they call it paddock talk, and the stigma was there. It is very difficult for a driver to come in public or to share that they have any kind of seeking help or something like that. Or it could be not on, like, I wouldn't say in Formula 1, in general, and especially with high profile people, very famous people, they could be the best in what they do. However, they are shame to say that I was seeking for help or talking about help. But then I realized that nowadays even footballer, like in a light of Neymar, in a light of, I could say many examples, that after they seek help, they were publicly mentioning that we seek help. Now, in your view, there are some lots of people who would not feel comfortable to share that I've been going there to seek for help. What would be your advice to them? They are listening to you right now. What are the things that they need to know?
That I would say that it's all part of being human. And when you come to therapy, you're just exploring your humanity. There is no such thing as positive or negative feelings. Some of them just feel better, some of them feel worse, and they're more uncomfortable. But all the feelings and emotions are human, and all the experiences that we go through in life are human. So when we come to therapy, we are just really allowing ourselves to deal with our humanity, and pretending that just because we are someone who's achieved a lot in terms of being a public figure, a sports person, or just a person who's achieved something specific worldwide or country-wise, whatever it is, and pretending that they don't feel pain, or they don't have worse days, it's I would say it's not great. Of course, it's still there because of how people kind of project so many things onto other, and because of social media, that is also a big thing, right? That we look at social media, and we, although the awareness is rising more and more, but we often look at social media and we think like, oh, this family is perfect, they've just posted perfect Eid or Christmas pictures, right? And everything is fine, and oh, they don't fight, they don't have difficult moments. Like, we know it's not true. Yeah, we all go through different things. We all experience pain. That's part of being human. We all experience loss, whether it's losing our loved ones because of death, because of losing a friendship, because of losing a partner, or just going through very challenging situations. So the whole thing is that I believe that it's not what we go through that defines us, but how we approach it, what we do with it, how we take it forward. And so in moments like this, having someone to support us, doesn't have to be therapist, could be life coach, or just sometimes a very good friend or a mentor, is super important. But it's all about our humanity. So if people basically say that, oh, this topic is not part of my life, then I would question that and see how much denial there is. Of course, not everybody can experiencing the same things at the same moment. Yes, we all go through different stages, and some phases of our life are easier, some are more challenging, but it's all part of being human. And I would even say, like, today I'm going to a beautiful event where we'll be setting goals for next year and probably talking about last year. And a lot of people are saying, oh, 2025 was so difficult. And one of my friends said, I don't want to go because it was too difficult. And I'm like, what if, like, you sharing that it was difficult for you will be an openness for other people to say, well, for me, it's also been difficult, because it has been challenging for a lot of us. And yet so many beautiful things have happened that year as well. So I think the more we speak openly about all parts of us and all aspects of us, the more we, of course, in safe environment, but the more we expose our true humanity, and we give other people permission to be humans as well, and not robots and machines that are supposedly perfect.
Inspiring. Before I end this podcast, I have one of the last question I'll ask you. Someone who's feeling stuck right now, and he doesn't understand how to navigate his energy or where to start. What would your strategy to him?
Feeling stuck in, like, can you be more specific? Like, just like, in anything?
Stuck emotionally, stuck in life, stuck about understanding that previous trauma that impacted him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, the feeling is stuck itself.
Mm-hmm.
How would you advise him
Mm.
in a similar situation?
Mm-hmm. I mean, so that would be again different for every person, yes. But I think I would start with just a regular conversation to see what does being stuck mean to them, how are they stuck, what they're stuck in, and what are the thoughts, what are the feelings, the emotions, the behaviors, how is their body doing. And so I would first start with here and now, what's going on. I would never right away jump into childhood, because sometimes it's just about tweaking things that are happening here and now, right? So therapy doesn't have to be always about, oh, we're going to go and talk about your childhood traumas and what happened. No, it's like, as I said about self-care, if we are somehow neglecting ourselves because of the lack of self-care, or we are going through a difficult situation, it's all about just changing maybe our thinking and our approach to here and now, and not always going back into the past. Yeah. So I would first look at, okay, tell me more about the being stuck. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. So until I get a deeper understanding, and then I see, okay, can we tweak it here and now based on, and just change the mindset. And I have lots of sessions like this. Absolutely love it. Just when we're like, how about you look at this from this perspective or that perspective? And it's like, and I love these moments when it feels like a light bulb goes in someone's head, and or just giving someone a question, or saying, so next time you ask yourself this question or that question, and things keep changing and shifting. And so there's no need to suddenly go and dig into the past. And sometimes there is a need for that. Sometimes there isn't. It's a very individual thing, but we always start here and now. Yeah, because that's where we are, I think, and the present moment is all we have. And then we can move into past if we feel like the past is impacting what is happening here and now.
Camera 1, camera 2, camera 3 is rolling. Now, my final thing for you, what would you say to the people who watched us? What would be your last message to them?
So I would say, embrace yourself and your humanity. Don't judge yourself and beat yourself up. Apply love and self-compassion. And if you ever feel stuck, then seek for help and support, because it's there. And I would say part of self-care is actually asking for help and support when we feel like we need it in all areas of our lives. So when it comes to our daily lives, feelings, emotions, our bodies, and just looking for help, it's always there when we, as long as we give ourselves permission and allow ourselves to get in touch with the courage within us and go and ask for help. So I would say it's there. So yeah, and that's part of the self-care. And I would say, maybe I'll go back to that one more sentence, that self-care, to remember that self-care is about taking care of yourself and being more present and connecting with others, with the world, with God, so with your whole life as such. So yeah.
Dagmara, thank you for your openness. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor to have Dagmara here in the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so, because it does help us. And let's make 2026 is different than the other years we've been in this channel, together in this journey. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you for your trust being in the podcast. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Mohammed.